you need to identify that source for yourself. And once you identify it, you need to rely on it. And in addition to that, make a or find a way for yourself to practice the language outside of that and outside of that structured environment, alone, on your own time.
Hello,
Hello, Pradip. How are you?
I'm fine. And what about you, sir?
I'm very good. It's good to see you again.
Okay, thank you.
So, Pradip, tell me, your last two episodes ago, did you get a lot of views?
Yeah. Because first video is going trending as comparison to the last video.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And are your audience finding benefit from your videos?
Yeah, exactly. Because in the comment sections, two to three students also commented and some personal text for me. And this is an amazing video because this particular video watching time is very high as comparison to the other videos.
Very good. Very good. So I was thinking today we can discuss something that I find is very beneficial to new learners, and beneficial to learners that are looking to reorganize the way they think about languages and the way they think about learning languages, right?
Okay.
Regardless of the language, whether it's English or Hindi or any other language that you're interested in learning,
Okay.
I find that it's very helpful to focus your mind on what it is you're trying to learn and what it is that you're trying to do with the language. Makes learning it much easier.
Yeah. Okay.
So, what do you think, in your opinion? What are the? I mean, I've seen the last couple of episodes, and I've seen other teachers giving you advice as well on your channel about learning languages, but everybody gives a different perspective. But from all the perspectives that you heard from different people,
Okay.
what do you remember the most? Which one do you think is the most impactful advice?
The most impactful advice is to see the movies and reading material, and this is a basic tips. All of are given to the students. And if I ask anyone ask me what about what was your idea, I also given the only this tips particular. You read it about it and you see the movie and you observe the same kind of mm, society they speak the particular language.
Very good. Yes, this is excellent advice, is to expose yourself language as much as possible. Personally, I'm not one to recommend depending on entertainment media such as movies source of language. I'm not saying that don't watch movies or don't listen to music. Indeed, you should, and you can, and it's good. But remember always that music and movies are highly related to culture, and they are a representation of culture and communities. And these cultures and communities have their own personal and cultural references. When I watch, let's say, an Indian movie, I watch it from my perspective as a foreigner, as a non-Indian, and I understand some things that are happening, or some references, or some comments that are made. They are verbal or gestures, but you, as a person from that culture, from that community, you watch the movie and understand it differently. You understand all the references, and you understand all the culture and all the language, and you don't miss any of it. For me, let's assume that I was a student trying to learn Hindi, and I watch a movie that's using that as the language, right?
Okay.
They would be using Hindi, but at the same time, they would be using Hindi cultural references that I might not be familiar with, right?
Agree.
So that might cause some confusion for me. I might not understand the reference, the cultural reference. Yeah,
Yep.
I might get lost in that parameter, but I will get exposed to Hindi language. I'll hear it. I'll hear the vocabulary. I'll hear the expressions, but I might not catch every. Could cause some
Okay.
confusion. That's why I don't recommend movies or music as a good source or a high quality source of language, right?
Okay.
But it can't hurt, right? Even if you do watch movies and music, it's not it can't hurt you, but it's I wouldn't recommend it as the main source of language exposure.
Yeah, I also try the listening a song with the lyrics. I try to read the lyrics so you can increase your speed of learning the new language, reading of new language. And what things you recommend for learning a new language in aspect these things?
Well, the way I see it, when you're trying to learn a new language, what you need to do is that you need to differentiate between the practice and the learning. All right. It needs to be
Okay,
balanced between two ends. You can't sit and learn the language continuously without practicing, and at the same
okay,
practice without learning. There needs to be a balance between acquiring the language and learning the language through either coaching or lessons or form of formal instruction. Uh, in addition to using what you've learned in practice, so you need to learn and practice continuously
okay,
in order to
yeah,
see overall development. But if you focus on one, you will not necessarily develop over time. And the proof is in the pudding. If you look at coming out of the school system, they spend probably 12 years of their life learning English in school, but never really get the true opportunity to use English as a language in their life. And they don't usually practice it through those 12 years. They only sit down in classrooms and learn it.
yeah,
So they come out 12 years later, knowing the grammar, knowing the vocabulary, knowing all these things, but they can't really utilize that knowledge because they've never really had the opportunity
yeah,
to use it, really use it,
exactly,
right?
exactly,
So this is
right,
where the system fails. Now, what you need to do as an adult is that you need to balance between both, right? Between structured learning. And when it comes to structured learning, you have to make an effort to find a reliable source of language instruction, whether it's online or one-on-one or Cambly or whatever
okay,
suits you and works for you, and the thing that's available to you, whether it's a matter or not, whether it's available to you or not, is a personal matter. But you need to identify that source for yourself, and once you identify it, you need to rely on it, and in addition to that, make a or find a way for yourself to practice the language outside of that and outside of that structured environment alone on your own time.
yeah.
You understand?
Yeah, agree.
So
But one barrier is there. You say the what kind of material we read and we do the practice. Student thinks about the language syllabus and syllabus be I mean say the language knowledge. Syllabus means the knowledge, and they just like I practice preposition, adjective, and I using the. This is a very time consuming process
it is
because
indeed,
we,
yeah, it is a time-consuming process
yeah
and
we
and a necessary process.
yeah, this is a necessary also, but so how to uh, what is the add-on in this process so we can accelerate in this process?
Okay, what you need to do is your perspective on language, okay? And you need to identify the parameters of the language that you are going to use. Instead of aiming to learn all of English, right? You want to learn
Okay.
the English that you need for your life, whatever
Yeah.
need it is. You have to identify that need, whether it's for email writing, whether it's for report writing, whether it's for meetings or sales or
Okay.
whatever it is you need to use English for. You need to work within that parameter and become proficient in that, right? And and focus on improving your language for that purpose. So instead of learning
Yeah.
English language, general language, you need to learn
Yeah.
English purpose.
Yeah. Agreed.
And by
Completely agreed.
focusing your efforts For that purpose, you will become better at that, and become more comfortable using that kind of language specific to that need. Okay,
Yes.
so English is a very large language when it comes to the number of vocabulary. Nobody is going to memorize 500,000 English words, right?
Yeah. Right.
There's no need to spend all that time memorizing a gazillion
Exactly.
words for no purpose. Uh,
Exactly.
you need to identify the vocabulary that's necessary for you. Maybe in your field or in your profession, there are the 100 top used words in sales, for example. Okay,
Yeah.
or the top 100 words used, whatever field that you're in, right? Once you identify that language and once you identify that vocabulary, you can utilize that vocabulary for, let's say, for example, if you work in sales, right?
Okay.
Salesmen are doing one thing. They're trying to sell a product,
Yeah.
and they sell products either by explaining the product to the customer, or identifying the needs of the customer, or perhaps the details of the product. So the language needed is for those purposes. So you need to know how to explain something, how to identify the items of something, or how to, etc. And by doing this, you minimize the amount of knowledge that you need to acquire, which shortens the time, right?
Yeah.
And the effort, and the noise, and the fog, and the static that comes with the unknown aim of learning the entire language. It's not
Yeah.
a very real goal, right? So you need to be specific. Your goal needs to be a smart goal. It needs to be specific, and it needs to be achievable. It has to be, they can't be just random general goals. Like, I want to learn English. That's not a very specific goal. I want to learn English so I can use English for sales is
Okay.
specific.
Agreed. So, a student can change the mindset. I learn English for what? Because this clear concept in the mind before going to the learning new language. For what was the my basic purpose? So I also have a experience for this particular things, because uh, in my last year I have a practice for my interview. So I giving my introduction, so I prepare my introduction only in the English, because I am not comfortable at all for speaking English. So that's why I only practice of one paper of my resume, and I speak again for the practice. This is my starting. And I think this is starting of all of us. They don't the new language.
That's true. I mean, for your purpose, for that moment,
Yeah.
you were going and getting ready for
So
that interview, and you perhaps even memorized what you were going
agree.
to say word for word, right? You weren't
Right.
focused on the structure of the sentence or whatever.
Yes.
You were more focused on perhaps memorizing the actual paragraph and making sure that your pronunciation is on point and comprehensible,
Yes.
and that you are able to convey the message clearly. And that was your purpose for that day. But language is not specific per day. You don't want to memorize language. You want to
Yeah.
understand it and understand how it's used for each purpose. And purposes
Okay.
vary, right?
Yeah.
From one person to another. But every repetitive language, you have language that you're always using. A salesman is always trying to explain the product,
Yeah.
is always trying to compare. So
Agreed.
you need
Yes.
to be able to use English for comparison purposes. You need to be able to compare products, for example, right?
Okay.
This is a type of language use in your day-to-day life. You don't memorize your sentences. You're going to learn how to do it in English, right?
Yes.
So when
Yes.
I compare something, this is how I compare it in English. This is the structure, so I can compare
Yes.
anything. I don't have
Agree.
to think about the sentence. I know how
And
to do it.
yeah. Also for this particular purpose, our efficiency and our fluency is also increased, because you practice for the particular purpose. I am doing a sales. I know what was the exact sentence I speak which time. So this is a set in my mind, and I explaining to the any customer of my features of my product. I generally say blah 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 these things, and
Pradip, is always a pleasure talking to you,
yeah.
and I look
Thank
forward to
you very
talking
much,
to you
sir, for
soon.
these great tips.